Hello everyone, so I've seen this from the Irish Times today, and as we know, particularly with young people and even older people in this country, everybody is miserable pretty much in Ireland. The whole state of the country, we fought for independence, we fought for a long time for independence of Great Britain, and basically thrown all that away, basically, our whole fight for freedom, we're giving it away basically to the European Union. We're giving everything away basically for nothing basically, and what I'm trying to say is we basically sold ourselves for nothing, basically, in a lot of cases, because our young people can't get a future, our older people are left to what? We'll become a soulless country, and that's to be totally honest, and we see this here. Only 20% of the Irish public have any hope for 2026. And unfortunately, when you look at the young people particularly, it's very, very bleak, because the majority of young people, it's nearly, at this stage, it's nearly 98% of people under 18 or so are considering moving away, leaving Ireland to Australia. And it's very, very bleak. Even during the worst days of the famine, I don't even think it was nearly that bad, that people were so hopeless. And I do think even years ago when the country had nothing, when people were dirt poor, I do think Ireland was a lot better of a country because people understood the meaning of family, understood the sacrifices of their grandparents to make Ireland become a reality, to have this state at the moment. And we'll hear from the government every day of the week, oh, we have so much money, we're one of the richest countries in the world. But the only Irish person, the only Joe that is a part of it, that makes this country, goes to work in the morning, raises a family, they don't see it. They don't see it. It's the politicians, it's the 1% in society that see the benefits, and they're the people that benefits the most. And it's so sad, because when you see it, Ireland is literally the worst in Western Europe. It is desperate. As you see here, 38% of the people who were polled said it would be pretty much worse than last year. Like, just think about that. And again, Ireland's supposed to be the richest country in the world, nearly one of the richest countries in the world. There's loads of money coming into this country. Ireland's having budget surpluses compared to countries like Finland and France, even the United Kingdom. They're just getting by no more, the economy. But the Irish economy is booming. It grew by 10% last year. It was one of the only countries in the world that grew. But again, all this is leprechaun economics and pretty much on papers. But it's such a sad thing to say, because the whole fight for Ireland's independence went on for years. And our grandparents, one of my grandparents was in the War of Independence, was in Commission on, hid people in the houses from the Black and Tans, etc. I'm sure she wanted to see people succeed in Ireland. That's why they fought for the independence, so Irish people could have a future, Irish young people could have a future, could build a family, could build a nation, could build something better than what they had. But to be generally honest, and I think the majority of Irish people, even the younger people I see, they nearly would say it's nearly better back then than now. And it's a hard thing to say in the 1920s when Ireland was fighting for its future, for its independence, that things were nearly better back then than they were today. And it's a sad thing to say, because the simple things Irish people can't even get. We look at our Ireland society, 16,000 people are homeless. Imagine in the 60s and 70s, when the country literally had nothing, just to say, when Ireland literally had nothing, it wasn't even as high. It doesn't make any sense, it doesn't make any logic. But it is a sad state of affairs, and we do have to act. We really, really do have to act, because it is a very bleak thing to have to, and especially the support, because you think people would be optimistic, particularly one of the richest countries in the world, and after fighting 800 years, 900 years for its independence, you think that people in Ireland would be looking forward to the 2026, new opportunities, new beginnings, maybe a new house, new car, whatever, the new job, etc., more prosperity of family. But unfortunately, the majority of young Irish people particularly, the only thing they're thinking of is when do I get on the plane, when do I go? Because the main thing is housing, of course, too, and there's many other things. But it is a sad state of affairs, and I really truly admit it, that unfortunately what all of Ireland's troubles during the past, etc., to gain independence, to gain our freedom, and now we have our freedom, we have basically thrown it away. We've given it away to Europe. We have sold ourselves out, basically what I'm trying to say. Not for the people. What the whole idea of the Irish Republic was under the people and under Almighty God. But unfortunately, we've thrown that all away for globalism. We threw it all away for the politicians to get rich, the 1%. But not for the only Irish Joe. It never benefits the only Irish Joe. What I'm trying to say is we lost our sense of purpose in this country. We've lost our sense of identity. We've lost our sense of belonging. We've lost our sense of anything, basically, in this country. We've basically just given it up for nothing, to be totally honest. What did we replace it with? The whole fight for Ireland's independence, identity, Irish sovereignty, Irish independence, the whole identity, the whole country, the whole history of Ireland, we basically have thrown it to the dogs. All for a few shekels, and that's only for the shekels for the politicians, not for the Irish people. And it's really a desperate thing when you really see this, that it is pretty much one of the most gloomiest countries in the world. Because even in the UK, for example, 40% were saying, yeah, they were looking forward to 2026 and they were hopeful for 2026 in the United States even too. But in Ireland, it's very desperate, particularly when you look at the young people. It's absolutely desperate. It's generally very desperate. I say it's probably only about 3% of the whole young adult population of Ireland. If we look at from 18 to 25, it's probably only 3%. And that is desperate, like really, really desperate. Like I don't think anybody realises, even me saying it, I can't portray to you even what I see on a day-to-day basis in young people. Even I can't tell you the amount of young people I've seen have to leave this country. Mainly because they didn't want to leave, they were forced to leave by the government because they begged the government, please give us some kind of affordable housing so we could stay, raise a family and stuff. And the government said, fuck you, no, we don't care. And basically the only option they had was either live on the street and starve on the street and left to rot on the street, or try and go somewhere else and try and work their way up and work and bust their bollocks to make a life for themselves, say in Australia or Canada. Because unfortunately a lot of young people are busting their bollocks to try and get a mortgage, try to get anything, trying to even pay the rent. They're busting the bollocks. They're busting themselves to the politicians in the Dáil. And unfortunately it's all for nothing because they'll never be able to afford anything. You own nothing to be happy about it, as they say. But what I'm trying to say, we need radical change in this country. We need severe radical change. And we need it by the end of the year because Ireland is lost, unfortunately, if we don't act soon in the next few years, because it is generally hopeless at the moment. It's beforehand there was hope, but unfortunately I have to say to people there's a lot of hope. There's a lot of hopelessness. I wouldn't blame young people because years ago people had opportunities, and this is the thing I realised myself. Years ago people were willing to take a risk in terms of employment and stuff, and college and stuff was good and all, but years ago people were able to take risks on people and give people the benefit of the doubt, and college wasn't a big thing, but people could make ends meet, money lasted longer, etc. And people people worked hard, but at the end of the day, they achieved great stuff. But nowadays, it's regardless of how hard you work, you can't get anywhere. It's simple as that. And I see it so many times with young people. It is a disgrace, and I think even as only citizens, people would say to me, "What can we do?" What I would say to people is to always stand up and speak out, never to be afraid to speak out, because it comes with consequences, particularly in the modern world. You're speaking out, etc. But it's important because we owe it to the ancestors who fought for this country. We owe it to them that we keep fighting for this country. And it's no longer an enemy abroad. It's an enemy within that's holding this country back and it's taking stuff from our country. It's no longer the British. It's no longer Westminster. It is the people in Dáil Éireann that are the people that are betraying this country, are putting this people into this position. It's our own government. It's our own government that people fought very hard to establish the first Dáil in Ireland, and it's a terror, the 22nd Dáil. I've toned in pretty much to the occupiers, the British Empire. History is repeating itself, unfortunately. That's what I'm trying to say. But what I say to people, we always have to stand up for people, particularly regardless what age you are. If you're in your 90s and 80s, you have a duty to society, you have a duty to the next generation to stand up for them. And I would say to my generation, our generation might be, I don't think there's any hope with if anything ever changing too much for our generation, but we should fight for the next generation. We owe it to them, and particularly anybody that's Christian out there, we owe it to them as Christians to stand up for the truth, and we will be rewarded in the next life for it. And that's what I take in my head, and that's what I'm standing by now. I don't care about anything else. That's my main goal in life now. To stand up for the next generation, stand up for this generation, of course, but to stand up for the next generation. Because if it's bad now for us, what's it going to be for the next generation? I shudder to think of it. But we owe it to them. We owe it to them, and we owe it to ourselves. We owe it to the country. We owe it to the state for the Irish people, not for the politicians, for our people, the Irish people. But again, I just wanted to speak about it because it is a sad state of it. It's a very sad way to start off 2026. But it's only by acknowledging this and by hoping and acting on it that we can pursue change, we can pursue hope, we can gain hope. And I just want to mention Senator Mowan's book, the former Finnish Prime Minister. There's only hope when there's action, and I think that's the thing, because for far too long we sat here and basically threw our hands up in the air and was like, oh, what can you do? But we can do something as the people together. We can stand against this government. We can cause lots of issues for them in every possible way, because the only way to get Ireland back to where it is to get this government out. Because at the moment in time they're not listening to anybody, they just refuse to listen. And that's the only way we pursue change, if we get people who genuinely care for the heart and soul of this country, and not people who are in just to grab everything they can get. and give it to other people. But we owe it to ourselves. But anyway, let me know what you think. Subscribe and bye.